Hello, upgraders, and welcome to another episode of the Upgraded Ape Show. I'm Will Barron, your host, and on today's show we have Brandon Gilbert. Brandon is an expert in Chinese tonic herbs. He owns a number of web stores, a Chinese herbal tonic bar, and also the Hyperion Academy. He's got an awesome YouTube channel with over 11,000 subscribers and 500 plus videos. It's a really good resource. And on today's show, we dive into the world of tea. We touch on nootropics and also meditation, binaural beats, which is something new to me, and it's been actually a really interesting experience. Before we get into the show, just a quick note that this show is sponsored by the upgradedape.com store. If you go to shop.upgradedape.com, there's loads of brain upgrading products and productivity upgrading products as well, such as the 60-day Get More Done Action Planner. It's what I use to get stuff done. It's what a lot of the guests now use, and it's just a structured system for getting more out your day and achieving a couple of big goals over a 60-day period. So now, without further ado, let's get on with the show.
Welcome to the Upgraded Ape Show, your daily dose of brain upgrades to help you kick life's ass. And here's your host, Will Barron.
Hi Brandon, and welcome to the Upgraded Ape Show.
Hey man, how are you? Thanks for having me on today.
Oh, no worries. I'm really keen, hyped to dive into some brain performance questions with you. But before we get started, can you just tell us a little bit about how you got involved in the world of Chinese tonic herbs?
Just in a short way of looking at it, I think it was kind of just a natural progression from my interest in Taoism and Taoist philosophy that started probably started as a kid and then really started to mature at around the age of 14. And then I found myself in a place in my life where I just felt kind of lost. My health wasn't very good, and I just really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So then I started getting into yoga and meditation. And then once I started really getting into meditation, I started wondering, well, what can I take or what can I do or, what's going on here that can help me meditate better and faster and easier. So then I started exploring things, herbalism and different breathing techniques and, binaural beats and all this type of stuff. And then really just something clicked with herbalism. And it's something that I've been deeply immersed in and deeply living and practicing and breathing personally and from a business perspective, and just really encompassing a lot of areas of my life for the last almost going up on 10 years now. So I can definitely align a lot with the whole intention and desire to really upgrade our mental faculties. And for me, my interest is going past the mind and kind of just getting into our consciousness, upgrading our awareness in general. So definitely align with that, and I'm very happy to be on your show right now.
Amazing. Well, let's look more at meditation then. While you mentioned it, 'cause it's something that I'm a massive fan of, and I do mindfulness meditation, and recommend it to the audience. Do you have any protocols, and what do you do to enhance that process?
There's some really simple things that a person can do to easily enhance meditation. One of the easiest things I found is just literally first thing in the morning, wake up, go to the bathroom. Don't look at your phone, don't look at email, don't talk to anyone. Just wake up, go to the bathroom, brush your teeth, whatever, have some water. And then if you're going to take some supplements, whether they're, nootropics or herbs or something, I've found that if you take those on an empty stomach with water and then sit down and meditate, you can really start to get in touch with not only the benefits of these things, but also maybe how they affect your body, and get in touch with really how you personally respond to things. And for me, that's a really valuable tool, because then we start to become more internally guided and empowered rather than necessarily relying upon, what someone else says or even someone else's experience. So that was really the kind of lab or trial ground where I deeply learned a lot about herbs, because that's what I would do is take something and then meditate for an hour or so and then just really feel, wow, what's going on in my body? Like, what's changing? Just observing, not necessarily trying to change it or influence or make anything happen, but just kind of what you're saying about mindfulness, just observe and see. So just those simple things can really enhance meditation. And then also things like binaural beats and these different brainwave entrainment software and application that's available today. I think if you combine those three things and you also have some sort of physical discipline, whether that's yoga or body work or stretching or something to sort of relax your physical tissues, you combine all those things together, and I think you can get some really powerful results in pretty short amount of time.
Well, let's dive into each one of those then, because that's absolutely fascinating. And it's not something that I've ever done, but it makes perfect sense if you're going to take some kind of nootropic or supplement. If you can then sit there and judge, and do you record what's going on? Do you track it? Or is it just how you feel during that day?
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely, if you're the type of person that really wants to do that, you can definitely get out a journal or get
Uh huh.
some sort of tool to measure it. For me, I always just memorize things and remember things, so I just sort of have this huge catalog in my head of things. Um, that's just kind of a little bit more of my style, but probably the more effective and efficient route would be to just have a notebook and track things and get very specific. And yeah, because sometimes, you know, it's been my experience a lot because I've taken pretty much almost everything that's out there available. And sometimes you can read about something online and it sounds amazing, has great testimonials, has great research, has everything about it sounds good logically. But then maybe you take it and it makes you feel like crap. And that's something that people get stuck with a lot. And even I get stuck with a lot personally too, and has really caused me to totally format and shift how I take things. So this simple tool of just sort of sitting with something and just observing can really sort of cut through a lot of mental chatter, so to speak, as far as giving you an existential and experiential taste for what so many things or people try to describe, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does, and it would be a great practice to do a couple of weeks or a week or so, have it doing that process without taking anything, so you know your baseline. Because I bet a lot of people, and especially our kind of audience, where they experiment with different supplements or drugs or nootropics or whatever it is, there's probably not been a time for years where they've not actually had anything running through their body. So knowing where their baseline is and then where different things take them would be a really useful exercise for them.
Yeah, and on that note, that's one thing I really would want to add is that, just like if you were training for a physical discipline or you were doing exercise, you would take time and rest. And these nootropics and drugs and things can be very intense and aggressive on the body. And sometimes just because things are safe, meaning they're non-toxic and they don't have harsh side effects and, studies say X, Y, and Z, that doesn't necessarily mean that they can be really overused because it
Hmm.
really just kind of depends upon our depth of understanding. I mean, because for me, I tend to really align more with Chinese medicine and looking at the body more holistically and energetically. Whereas sometimes people get too carried away scientifically and really compartmentalize and divide everything and look at everything in terms of just molecules and chemicals. And from that perspective, you can miss a lot of things. So, really, what I'm trying to say is that, we can take a substance that's non toxic and really good for us. And it could even be, let's say, a tonic herb that's really nutritious and really amazing. But if we take it for too long, then it can actually start to be harmful to our body. Because it's kind of like if you ate the same food every day for a long period of time, eventually that will damage your liver. Because basically your liver will have to keep producing the same enzymes over and over and over and over and over. And then it sort of gets kind of stuck in that rut. And then if you do that too long, eventually you just develop an allergy. And then your body starts to develop mucus, it starts to develop autoimmune, like just a whole ball of wax can really be opened up. So I'm a fan of taking things and doing things and experimenting. And I also really want to advise that we respect, these substances. And just because they're maybe X, Y, or Z doesn't mean we can overuse them. And to also give ourselves time to rest and to give ourselves times to not take anything, to just eat food and exercise and meditate and like do the simple basic things without always having to, be taking something. Because the other thing is that if we're always taking something, sometimes we miss the fact that like, you know, holy shit, I feel way better. Sometimes we don't allow ourselves that space to realize like, whoa, I do feel more clear. I do feel smarter. I do feel different. I have changed. And now there's nothing in my system, but I have changed. So those are just some tidbits that I want to pass along just from, my perspective from studying Chinese medicine for so long and working with so many good practitioners, because that's really where I have learned a lot and shifted a lot is just from having really good teachers and people that have been, in the healing alternative industry for longer than I've been alive. So so hopefully I can share some of that wisdom as well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm making notes, Brandon. I'm scribbling notes down here myself. And yeah, you made some great points. And there's been quite a few people have said it now, but Tim Ferriss said it quite recently along the lines of there's no biological free lunch. If you're getting some benefit from a herb or nootropic or food, whatever it is, that is likely to be the offset of something else not getting the nutrients that was going to go there in the first place.
Yeah, that can be true, and I would say as if you're talking about isolated substances, say if you're taking like, I don't know, a 5-HTP or an L-theanine or a GABA or some sort of isolated nutrient,
Hmm.
then yeah, you're gonna be kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul, kind of, because it's one piece of information. Whereas like, that's kind of why people are really more into, whole foods or whole kind of supplements is because you get the whole matrix. So you get the whole amount of information rather than just one little hyper concentrated frequency of it. So
Hmm.
that's kind of why, as far as nootropics go, really where I've arrived at now, I think my absolute favorite is high quality organic high mountain oolong tea. And specifically why I like it is for these reasons, is because it's contains hundreds and hundreds of beneficial molecules, beneficial chemicals, but it contains the whole spectrum in a way that's balanced and in a way that is just generally sort of nutritive and supportive to the body. Because for years I took isolated L-theanine and I really liked it. It felt really good and I got a lot of benefits from it. But the thing is, like, drinking this tea now, I can see how that I was missing out on actually a lot of other things as well. So just another kind of thing to add on that.
Yeah, for sure. And that tea's not something I've come across before. Can you give us another one or two other top supplements or hacks that you do nootropics wise?
Yeah, I think there's a couple more things that I would like to add about tea in general. And I think probably your culture has a little bit more familiarity with tea, whereas America is just kind of just now starting to understand what tea is and like even know that it exists. Um, the thing is with tea though is that really like with most things in life, quality is everything. Because like if I say oolong tea is good and then you go to the store and you buy oolong tea, odds are the oolong tea that you buy won't be good because there's so many factors that go into it. And obviously, I'm not going to go everything because if people want to really learn about tea and all these intricacies, they can check out my website or my YouTube channel where I've talked about it kind of at length because it's really a whole thing. But also on my website, I've linked to a couple of studies that basically say that higher quality tea equals more active constituents equals more benefits. So meaning if you read online green tea is good for you, and then you go to the store and you buy some cheap green tea, or even if you get organic quote unquote green tea in a tea bag, That is all basically just stuff they swept off the factory floor. The vast majority of the time, people.
Damn, you're saying that as I literally just took a sip of green tea from a supermarket.
I mean, it's not like it's bad, but the thing is like if you were to get the real stuff and then prepare it in the correct way, the experience from a flavor perspective and from a consciousness shifting perspective is completely different.
Hmm.
It's just, and there's even studies that have sort of shown that basically if you prepare tea more consciously and intentionally, then it tastes better and it makes you feel better, which that's all linked on my website as well. But I mean, truth be told, I didn't know anything about this for, all of my life. It was only in the last year that I even started to learn about this and then spent all this time and energy and sourced what I believe to be really the highest quality tea that really anyone can buy. Because there is definitely higher quality tea than what I have, but the thing is you can't buy it unless you know someone or unless you happen to know the farmer. Because the tea that
Really?
I got, I happened to get really lucky, and because the farm that I got it from actually sells their entire crop before they even have it, meaning every people are pre-ordering for months and months before they even have the crop, and it's all already sold. But fortunately, through good relationships and good luck, I was able to buy some of the family's kind of personal stash. And really, I've spent the last probably 4 or 5 months trying to really bring this tea out and really educate people on this thing I mean, it's the second most consumed beverage on the planet behind water. But the thing is, like, most people don't really understand it and they haven't really had the real thing.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot I can say about that, but I would say if someone really, really wants to get into it, just check out my website because it's all on there. But it's just pretty much shown that quality equals more benefits. And the thing is with about tea is you can buy the best tea in the world, but it's not that expensive. You can buy like literally my tea is some people will consider expensive, but you can drink it and it's like 75 cents a cup. And it's like you can't name another like supplement or beverage or anything on the planet that really has as many health benefits and as is delicious to consume for such a cheap price. So like even though it's like the best tea really that you can get, it's still incredibly affordable and cheap, especially for the amazing benefits that you get. And I don't know, everyone that I've ever let try it has just been completely blown away. So,
It
anyways,
sounds amazing. Well, look, we can talk about it off show, but
sure,
what
yeah,
we'll do is I'll place an order with you. I'll give it a go myself.
yeah, for sure, man. We'll talk about that. Kind
So you mentioned tea. What else do you do or take nootropic or brain wise?
am still a big fan of meditation. So, green tea and meditation for me are really hard to beat. As far as really looking at long-term sustainability, because
Hmm.
I definitely had a solid phase of 3 years where I was popping so many nootropics and so many pills every day. But that just eventually led me towards a lot of digestive issues and sort of overactivated my adrenals. So
Yeah.
from that, I'm sort of interested in, well, what can I do for the rest of my life and not
Hmm.
have to worry about side effects or these types of things. So for me personally, organic high mountain oolong tea, meditation, and then tonic herbs like reishi mushroom and gynostemma are really high up on my list because
Awesome.
these are things that have amazing benefits on the body, but they're really gentle as well. They're more balancing. And kind of for me, where I'm at in my journey is I'm more interested in being balanced and rooted and grounded rather than kind of elevated or stimulated or whatever. Because really, I think the biggest productivity hack ever, if there ever was one, is just basically the removal and release of stress and tension.
For sure. And meditation for me is the best way to go about that.
Yeah, and I think I think really if we really, really want productivity, we really, really want to have peak performance, it, in my experience, requires more than just what we take or don't take. It's obviously a whole, it's a lifestyle thing is you have to move and exercise and meditate like we're talking about, and then obviously eat right and take the right things. But sometimes I think people just get too stuck on just let me take this pill and everything will be fixed. Whereas that works for a while, but then eventually we have to start, kind of really doing more and really integrating this higher level of awareness and consciousness into more of our lives.
Well, people are looking for a magic bullet from a pill, and unless you've got generally some kind of neurological or neurochemical disorder which a pill could fix, you're just not going to get it.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Or you might get it for a week or two and then it'll end up probably going away.
Well, something else you mentioned then was binaural beats, which isn't something I've experimented with, but it's been on the long list for a while. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and your experience with it?
Yeah, honestly, this is like one of the more powerful things that I've come across, and I'm amazed that more people aren't aware of it. It's kind of like it's like I'm trying to think of the best analogy, but it sort of meditates you in a way, rather than you quote unquote meditating, the sound sort of meditate you. So for people who, maybe aren't familiar with it or don't know what it is, basically the word binaural just sort of means that basically you listen to a piece of music or some sounds, and each channel of the stereo, meaning left and right, has a different frequency in it. And basically what those sounds do is entrain your brain into a different brainwave state. So there's, various brainwave states that are associated with various states of consciousness and awareness and clarity and productivity and lots of things. So it's beta, alpha, theta, delta, and then recently discovered gamma and epsilon and a few others. But basically, most people spend most of their time in a beta kind of awareness, which is very kind of hyperactive, very all over the place, very much focused on the external world. Once we start to meditate and maybe calm down, or maybe we take a nootropic, then we start to taste a little bit of alpha state, where we start to get a little bit more creative. We feel more in the moment. We feel more in the flow, in that flow state. But there's still deeper than that. There's theta and delta that we can access as well. And usually that takes many years of disciplined work and meditation and effort to even experience those. Even though, I mean, we all experience them when we sleep because they're natural states, but we're asleep, so we don't really remember. So when you access these states in your waking consciousness, what happens is you go into this thing called mind awake, body asleep. So what happens is your whole body just says, "Oh man, we are in, alpha, delta, theta land right here." And it just relaxes and shuts down and kind of goes to sleep. And all of a sudden, everything in your mind just kind of goes into slow motion, kind of slows down, and then you're in a place to really reflect or think about, okay, I have this problem, how can I solve it? Or I'm working on this project, what's the resolution? And it's just a much more empowered state. And then once you become familiar with that, you can access that really anytime, any place, because it's just been trained as a reflex. So some binaural beats technologies that I'm a fan of. There's one on the iPhone. If you go on the Apple Store and type in brainwaves, you should see there's a company, they're called Bonsai Labs, Banzai, and they have a couple of apps, and they have different programs for, waking up, or for focusing, or for relaxing, or different kinds of states. And you can basically, choose, okay, I want to do this for 10 minutes, and then press play, and it's really easy. And I think the app is like a couple dollars. It's really not bad. As far as Android availability, I don't know because I don't have Android and I'm not familiar with the Android store, but there are probably options. Aside from that, there's a company called Equisync, so EQUISYNC, Equisync. and they have some programs you can just buy and download. You can either get the CDs from them or you can just download the MP3s, put them on your device or computer or whatever. And those are the ones that I really like. And I've used those a lot and been using those for years and really enjoy the results. And I think it's just for the a little amount of money for the of that it costs and for what you get out of it, I think it's just really a gold mine. And it can really enhance and speed up our meditative process. Or even if we don't care about meditating, you can just put these things on and just lay down and relax. You don't even have to do anything. You don't even have to try because it'll basically work on your brain and you'll probably find that you go into really different states of consciousness that you haven't really experienced before. Or what happens is when people first begin is they just fall asleep because
Mhm.
their body's like, "Oh, finally we get to relax," and it just shuts off. But, eventually we get over that. So
That sounds amazing. Sounds absolutely fascinating. It's something that, well, I'm literally going to go and try it as soon as we finish with the show.
that's awesome, man. I think you'll dig it. I mean, if you've been meditating, I think it's what you could call a force multiplier, to sort of borrow Tim Ferriss terminology.
Yeah. Awesome stuff. Well, look, Brandon, can we do some quick fire questions and learn a little bit more about you?
Let's do it, man.
If you could high five anyone, who would it be?
I would say ancient Tao. I don't know, maybe Jimi Hendrix or Bruce Lee, probably.
Nice. That's definitely a first for the show. What is one book that you'd recommend to the Upgraded Ape audience?
I would say this book called Hardwiring Happiness by Rick Hanson.
And is that about as it says?
Yeah, basically, this guy is a neuroscientist and a PhD, but he's also been a Buddhist meditator for a long time. And he's done a lot of research studying Buddhist monks and people that meditate. So the book is literally just about overcoming our brain's inherent negativity biases and just using, modern neuroscience understanding and discovery and ancient Buddhist understanding, combining that in really simple, really easy, basic practices that just literally, like the cover says, just sort of hardwire happiness or retrain ourselves to be happier and more grateful and more positive. So I could definitely highly, highly recommend that book.
Yeah, sounds fantastic. One last quick fire question. If you could smack someone in the face, who would it be?
Man, there's so many people on that list. It's hard to narrow it down, but in a general way, it would probably be a politician or head of some corporation that has done something incredibly destructive to the planet.
And no particular names come up
I
then.
can't I can't narrow it down. There's just too many people.
Okay, Brandon. Well, I've got one final question for you, and it's a question I've asked everyone who's come on the show so far. It is, if you could go back in time and speak to your younger self, what would be one piece of advice you'd give him to upgrade his brain?
The biggest piece of advice that I would give my younger self is it might not seem related to productivity. It might not seem related to these things, but it is in fact really intertwined with it. But what I would tell my younger self is to basically that number one, it's not your job, and number two, to say who gives a shit and move on. So what I mean by that is basically number one is we as humans sometimes spend a lot of time and energy and lifetime doing things that really aren't even correct for us. We only do them because we feel like we ought to, or we're afraid to take a leap of faith and do something else. So we just
Hmm.
stay stuck and we stay in this dysfunctional state. So that's kind of really what I mean by realizing it's not your job. Like it's not your job to, you know, exist in this state that you think you have to. And then the second one is also kind of related, where it's kind of like, who gives a shit, move on, meaning, because there's this other thing where we spend a lot of our energy trying to change other people or help other people see the light or all different types of ways of kind of encroaching on other people's personal space. And people try to do it to us all the time too. It's just the world we live in. You know, people are always telling us, you should do this, you shouldn't do that, why would you do this, why would you do that, blah, 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 all this type of stuff. So realizing who gives a shit, it's not your job, kind of liberates us and frees us from the vast majority of human predicaments and stress, which I think for most humans, a major source of stress is dealing with other humans and navigating this social world and trying to find our place and do what's right for us and earn a living doing what we love and feel just good and happy about the life that we're creating. So those two things that I said might seem really simple, but they're in fact like quite complex and there's actually a lot in there. So that's what I would say to my
That's a great answer, and we could do a whole show just talking about those kind of concepts of you're not your job and why are you doing this to please other people, and the kind of programs that are running in your subconscious that make you want to do all this stuff when you're right. If you're just kind of like, oh, I don't give a shit, and like you do what's right for you and what's right for the world, and you're building your body of work or you're moving along those lines, it's massively empowering for people.
Yeah, and that's these types of things are things that I really educate a lot on my membership site on Hyperion Academy. I've taught a lot of classes on this whole thing, and I'm actually in the middle of teaching a class right now. Like literally, as soon as we get done on Skype, I'm gonna go to my other computer and start working on that class because I have to post it up later today. But it's just a massively important thing, and it's equally, if not sometimes more important than maybe what we eat or how we exercise. Because it's just, if you are miserable in your relationships and your life, to a degree, what you eat and how you exercise kind of doesn't matter as much because it's just getting overridden by a lot of stress and unnecessary negativity and suffering. So
Yeah, man, you're spot on. Spot on. Brandon, can you tell us a little bit more where our audience can find out more about you? You mentioned your academy, also your herb store, and any other projects you've got going on.
yeah, earlier when I was mentioning the tea, people can find that at organicoolongtea.com. Pretty easy domain to remember. So organicoolongtea.com, and on there I have loads of really good information about the tea. If you go to the website, you can go to the tab that says what is oolong tea. There's, you know, 4 different tabs that really get into the chemistry for how tea really benefits the mind and the health. And there's also scientific resources and also what most people leave out, which is, you know, all of the cultural and historical association that tea has had. So that's one website. My other website is hyperionacademy.com. And that is basically my private membership site where I do the vast majority of my education because, you know, for 4 years I was putting out a lot of videos on YouTube for free. I have almost 500 videos for free on YouTube, but really in the last year I just sort of kind of quit doing that a lot and I just teach and give everything to the members on the membership site. So there's, you know, different classes that I've taught ranging from, you know, intelligent movement, meaning learning to move in our bodies more intelligently, ranging to, um, you know, upgrading our consciousness and our awareness, you know, in-depth education about herbs and supplements. And then I also have a private store that's only available for Hyperion Academy members because I have a different array of really high quality, really, really top shelf, really rare kind of herbs and formulas that I've created over the years. And just because they're so expensive and they're so high quality and they're so rare, they're really only for you know, people on the academy. And then my general herb store, my public operation, and really what I've spent most of my life doing up until this point is HyperionHerbs.com. So that's where people can learn more about reishi mushroom, which I mentioned earlier, which is been called the herb of immortality for thousands of years, and then also gynostemma, which is a really amazing Chinese tonic herb as well, and then also can just really find out a lot more about, what these different tonic herbs and things can do for our health.
That's awesome, man. And we'll link to all that in the show notes. And yeah, I just want to say thanks again for your time, and thanks again for coming on the Upgraded Ape Show.
Hey, I really appreciate it. Hopefully what I shared was of some benefit and value to everyone. And yeah, thanks for having me on. It's been a lot of fun.
Cheers, man.
All right, thank you.